Is the Indian economy becoming increasingly vulnerable to global shocks? Is the government landing us in an external mess as big as the one in 1991? As the debate around India's widening current account deficit gets shriller, global headlines aren't exactly getting supportive either, with the US breaching the sequester deadline and talks of Italy exiting the Eurozone doing the rounds. On We Mean Business tonight, we debate what India should be doing in the face of rising global risks and a balance of payment situation that's gone out of hand. Joining us on the show, Thomas Richardson, Senior Resident Representative India at the International Monetary Fund; Ajay Dua, former Secretary at the Ministry of Commerce and Industry; Ajay Sahai, the Director General at the Federation of Indian Exports Organization; Jay Shankar, independent economist and political strategist; Meera Sanyal, Country Executive, RBS India; and Vivek Daheja, author of Indianomics, also join in on the show. In fact, before we begin our debate and get to our guests, you, the viewer, can now participate on We Mean Business. All you need to do is download the NDTV Profit app. You can then go on to the second screen and tap it over there. You can ask in your questions. You can vote on the questions that are being asked over there. You can also send in your opinions on what the anchor should ask. You can also send in video queries, and through the course of the show, we will try and get the top-rated questions on your screens answered. I want to begin the show with Thomas Richardson. Sir, external risks clearly in the last few months seem to have exacerbated a lot of headlines coming out of the US, from Europe, Italy. Makes one believe that the global situation is indeed getting more volatile and India is more exposed than ever.
Well, thank you very much. I think the global environment certainly is full of a lot of uncertainties, both from the U.S., where the sequester raises some questions about what will happen to growth in the U.S., but also in Europe, where the Eurozone issues continue to be ones that raise a lot of questions for investors and market analysts. That being said, I think our sense is that I don't want to say that the global economy has turned the corner, but we do see some signs that things have stabilized and are relatively optimistic about the global outlook over the coming year. That said, growth is still likely to be muted, about 3.5% this year and maybe a bit more next year. So relatively low, muted growth, but we don't see strong evidence that things will turn down and turn the wrong way.
Right. Meera Sanyal, with growth in India at 4.5%, worries about the current account deficit. Is India becoming more vulnerable to external shocks than it was, say, about a year ago?
So I think you can really look at the answer in two ways. One is that we do have a very large fiscal deficit and a large current account deficit. And these do need to be controlled. So long as the fiscal deficit, we show signs of wanting to consolidate it, as the finance minister has done. Hopefully that gives foreign institutional investors confidence, and they will continue putting money into the economy, which funds the current account deficit and allows us to manage that situation. Having said that, I think we really do need to take into account the fact that the Indian economy is now fairly vulnerable. There was a time when we used to say that India was insulated from the world. I think that is no longer true. And we do need to start getting our own investment climate into order. We do need to start taking the necessary steps, the reform measures, to encourage investment, not just foreign investment, but also local investment. And I think that is something that is extremely critical, because the global economy is not going to provide us the buffer that we need to move forward.
Right. And Jay Shankar, all of these reform measures are not taken particularly on the current account side. Could we be facing a similar situation that we did in 1991, or are we far away from that? Is that a bit too far-fetched? Jay Shankar?
Well, I think the difference between now and the difference is definitely in terms of your ability to attract capital, and there I think there is less concern if you compare the situation now with what we had in 1991. So yes, the vulnerability is there, but to the extent that you can attract foreign capital, that vulnerability gets kind of covered, if you like. But over the time, over the last 3 to 4 years, if you look at your trade deficit, that has really been the biggest worry, because currently at about 10% of GDP, that is something really to be worried about, and your import coverage is not more than 7 months. So the vulnerability is there definitely, but I think to the extent that you can continue to attract capital, foreign capital, there's no such 1991 kind of threat immediately.